Hi everyone, welcome back to the Akron Zoo. My name is Autumn, and before we get started on today's Lunch and Learn, I just want to do a shout out for National Nurses Day. Thank you so much for all you do to take care of us, and hope that you are having a great week. Now, it is Wednesday, and typically we call Wednesday Hump Day, but I'm canceling that today. It's all about the lizards today. It is lizard lunch, lunch and lizards, however you want to say it, we're all lizards. So we're going to do a little bit of traveling. So we're going to start off here. We're here in Ohio. We're going to be looking at lizards from two different types of environments, and they have completely different kinds of adaptations. So our first lizard, we're going to travel all the way over to the Middle East around Afghanistan. We're going to meet our little lizard that lives in a very arid desert environment. He's very adapted for that. Actually, he got his name is Stan, from the area that you find him in. So we're going to get Stan out so you can see him. Now Stan is our little leopard gecko. So we'll give you a close look at him. Now he is so cool. He is fully grown. So this is as big as these guys get. And they are carnivores. They love to eat bugs. That's their favorite thing. Now they're going to spend a lot of the day hiding under rocks, the heat of the day, and come out mostly at night looking for those bugs. Now he's got a lot of things on his body to help him survive in the desert. And first is his skin. Now his skin is scaly since he is a reptile, and it is almost waxy with these little bumps on it. And that's going to really help him conserve water in that desert environment. He's got those big eyes to help him see. He's going to sit up a little bit higher off of the rocks, and that'll help any air to go under his body and help cool him down. But what is so cool about him is this tail. So leopard geckos will store extra fat in their tail. So kind of like the camel. So he is our representative camel today on Lizard Hump Day. So he will store fat in that. So during times when there's not a lot of water, there's not a lot of food, he can actually survive off of the fat in that tail. Now, he does have to be careful because that tail will separate. It will come away from his body. And that might not be a good thing because it's going to take energy for him to grow that tail back. And he's got to find food in order to get that energy. Now Stan here, he is one of our old guys. He came to the zoo in 2005, but we don't really know when he was hatched out, when he was born. So that makes him pretty close to 15 years old, at least, at the very minimum. And these guys can live about 15 to 18 years. So he is our old guy. We keep an eye on him because he is such a cool little guy as he goes around. Now he is a gecko. You see him putting his tongue out. If he needed to, he might use that tongue to help clear his eyes out, but he does have eyelids that will help him as well. So that is Stan. All right. Do we have any questions about Stan before we let him go away and we meet our next animal when we go traveling?
How long does it take to regrow a tail?
Oh, it depends on the amount of food supply that he could get to. It could take him a couple months up to a couple of years in order to grow that tail back. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and let Stan go back to his little travel house. We're going to meet our next animal, who is also from a desert region. So we're going to come back to our globe here, and we're going to go from the Middle East all the way down. We'll tilt my globe to Australia. The interior of Australia is where this guy is from. And actually, I said guy. It's not a guy. So this is Steve. So Steve has a great story. Steve is a bearded dragon. Come on, buddy. Steve is a beautiful bearded dragon. Now Steve came to us in 2011, I believe, and she came from a reptile rescue down in Cincinnati. So she was a pet. She was kind of released or confiscated, whatever the situation was. And they told us about her. We thought, hey, we could make a really great home for her here at the zoo. So we brought her in, named her Steve. And at that time, we didn't really know if Steve was a boy or a girl. And then we fast forward a couple of months and she laid some eggs. So Steve told us Steve is a girl. We still call her Steve, and she is a beautiful bearded dragon. Now she's got some different adaptations that's gonna help her out. And she lives in the desert, so she's gonna have that nice scaly skin. That coloration is gonna help her blend in to the desert, to that red sandy soil. Those scales are gonna help protect her, and you'll notice that she's got a little bit more spikier scales than what Stan had. Let's see if Steve will wanna hang out down here. You guys can check her out. Now bearded dragons get their name because they have this wonderful kind of extra skin down underneath their throat. And if they get threatened, they will kind of stand up, they'll puff that beard out, and it makes them look really full and mean. So the idea is the bigger I look, the meaner I might look, and that predator might stay away from me. Now she is also a carnivore, so she is going to eat a lot of bugs, grubs. She might go ahead and eat some plants now and then. She's going to use those claws that you see to help her dig in the sandy soil. And if she gets too hot, she's going to kind of sort of raise herself up, and she'll do sort of like a opposite legs to help herself cool down, and she'll stick herself way up. She'll also do something that we call pancaking. So if a predator is coming by, she may get really flat to the ground and make it a little bit more difficult for that predator to see her. Now, some of the things that might try to eat her are going to be animals like birds of prey. So those birds of prey may come up and try to get her. So she came to the zoo in 2011 or 2012, and we are pretty sure that she was born in 2011. So she's about 9 years old, and these guys can live to be around 15 years old. And she is full grown, so she won't get too much bigger than this, maybe just a little bit. She is a reptile, so if, as I said, if she has babies, she'll lay eggs. She does not live with a boy, so if she does have eggs, it'll just be sort of a little bit like that chicken egg you might have at home. Well, their eggs are a little bit different than birds' eggs. They're very soft and almost leathery. But she will lay eggs. That makes her a reptile. She is also cold-blooded, which means that her body temperature is going to match the environment that she lives in. So she will kind of be into that. If she gets too hot, she's going to go find shade to try to cool down. If she gets too cool, she's going to go out in the sun to try to warm back up. Do we have any questions about Steve?
We've got a couple, but really fast going back to Stan. Is it hard to keep a gecko in zoos?
So Stan is actually leopard geckos do pretty well in zoos. There's a lot of information that we learn about them, so that we make sure that we give them the right type of food, that they live in the right kind of environment, that they have the right type of humidity and the right type of light. Light is very important for many lizards. They need a certain type of light, UV light from the sunshine, that helps them to process calcium in their body. And calcium is so important for strong bones. So if they don't have the right kind of light, it may affect how their bones grow. So that's one of the things that we are very sure that we provide that right type of light for them to help make sure that they are strong and healthy.
So why are they called bearded dragons?
Well, they get their name primarily because of all this lovely skin right up here underneath her throat. When she gets upset, she can puff that skin out, and it looks like a big old beard that she has. And even though she's tall, she has a little bit of what we think of as dragons, if you look at her face. So that's how they got the name bearded dragon.
So how many eggs does Steve lay at a time, and how often does she lay eggs?
So it really depends. We may see her go a couple of years without laying any eggs, and then she may go, in 1 year she might have maybe somewhere around 2 to 3 eggs. It really depends on what's going on. Light cycles can help stimulate egg production, and generally it's going to be one time of the year, and I can't remember what time of the year that is for these guys.
Okay.
I'll see if I can look that up.
All right. So
right.
does Stan sell car insurance?
Does Stan sell car insurance? Wrong type of gecko, but nice try.
And has Stan ever dropped his tail since he's been at the Akron Zoo?
No, so that's one of the things that we are very careful with, is their tails, because if they do come off, it takes so much energy for them to grow it back, and we want to make sure that they don't have to use all that extra energy to do that, and they stay nice and healthy. So Stan has never dropped his tail. Yay! All right, so those are our desert lizards. We're gonna make another trip. We're not gonna go super far. We're gonna leave the center part of Australia, and we are gonna fly to this little tiny group of islands called the Solomon Islands. And the Solomon Islands are home to some pretty unique animals. Let me get his space set up. We are going to meet one of those animals. Now this animal has a couple of different types of names. They're called Solomon Island skink. They're also called a prehensile-tailed skink. Now, I do wear gloves for this guy because if he does decide, he's pretty laid back and easy, but if he does decide to take a little nibble out of anything, he does have some sharp teeth. So he is snoozing right now. Get his space set up. So his name is Lewis. All right, hold on. Come on, Lou. He got his name Lewis because he came to us here at the Akron Zoo from the St. Louis Zoo. So we'll see if Lewis feels like doing any climbing today. Lewis is pretty slow. All right, so as Lewis is thinking about what he wants to do, I'll tell you a little bit about him. So he is a prehensile-tailed skink, or Solomon Island skink, and these guys live up in the trees. So these are more of a rainforest type of lizard. They have that nice green skin that helps them blend into their environment, again, up in the trees, but they've got this really cool, unique tail for a lizard. It's a prehensile tail. So that means he can use it as an extra hand to wrap around and hold on to things. He was like, I'm too lazy right now to hold on to things. Now, the one thing with these guys is that if they lose this special tail, they don't grow it back. So it's really important that they keep onto that tail. They keep hold of that tail. So Lewis is about as big as these guys get. They may get slightly bigger. They've got nice sharp claws to hold on to the tree branches that they go through. And these guys are primarily herbivores. So he's going to eat fruits and leaves. So there's some fruits with very thick skin. So he has those nice strong jaws and sharp teeth to help him get through that skin, the skin of that fruit. One of the things that you'll also notice is lizards have their ear is just sort of like a hole into their head. Mammals are pretty much the only animals that have, I call them ear flaps. Our ears stick out to direct sound into our little holes that lead into our eardrum. So these guys are going to try to protect their ears as much as possible. Now, these guys, when they reproduce, they do have eggs, but they don't lay their eggs. They do something, and I have to admit, it is one of my most favorite words ever. They are ovoviviparous. Very long word. that means they lay eggs, but they have live birth. So now Lou wouldn't, but when they have babies, they're going to produce an egg, but hold that egg inside of their body. So they'll only have one at a time, and when the egg hatches out, then they kind of emerge from this lizard's body. So it's sort of like a live birth, but not truly like a mammal's live birth. So these guys are pretty unique, but it also, because they only have one baby at a time, they don't replace their numbers super fast. So because of the environment that they live in, and that they're kind of slow breeders, these are an animal that we definitely have to protect and pay attention to. So they are super cool.
So why do they have bumps on their skin?
So it looks like bumps. His skin is actually pretty smooth. So he does have scales, and the scales are typical of reptiles, and he will shed that skin in patches to just help keep everything clean and clear. These dark spots are actually just coloration, so they're not bumps. His skin is very smooth. Now his head looks a little bit different. It's a slightly rougher texture, but not incredibly rough. It's still pretty smooth, but you can see those scales pretty well. So his whole body is really very smooth and not bumpy at all, like we saw in Stan and in Steve.
So why do their tails not grow back?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if the muscles that control the prehensile action are able to regenerate the same way that you can find tails regenerate in other animals. You're going to meet one that has a really interesting way that their tails regenerate.
Okay, so how long do they incubate the egg before birth?
Ooh, that is a great question. Let me see if I can find that answer really quick while you check him out. They incubate the eggs for about 3 months.
Okay, so why is their skin green?
Why is their skin green? Well, these guys live up in the trees in a rainforest area. So this green skin is going to help them blend into the leaves in the trees, and hopefully predators won't find him then. And things that might try to eat him would be big snakes and hawks. So we will go ahead and let Lewis go back to his house. We'll make one last trip before we make our way home. These are like their RVs, their travel houses. All right, now I gotta do a little adjustments for our last animal, because she is bigger than the lizards that you've met so far. So we are going to leave the Solomon Islands and fly over the Pacific Ocean all the way to Central and South America. So we're going to be coming to this area here for our last animal. Now, she's going to need all this space, so we're going to be moving some stuff around. So this is another lizard that lives in the rainforest. She is like ready to come out and see you guys. In the trees. So this is Taino. We call her Ty for short, and she is a green iguana. So, believe it or not, she is only medium sized for a green iguana. They can get to be about 7 feet long from the tip of their nose to the tip of their tail. So she right now is maybe somewhere around 3.5 to 4 feet long. So she's got a little bit of growing that she can still do. Now these guys, they are so amazingly adapted for what they do. So they live in the rainforest. They are excellent climbers. So you're going to notice these long toes, and they have sharp claws. They're going to help them walk across the branches and climb up the trees. If you've ever seen one in their native habitat, they are very fast. They can scale that tree very quickly. And their nails are super sharp to help them get a good grip. Once they get up in those trees, they often go out over a river on the tree branch, and that is where they will bask and soak up the sun. But if a predator comes along, they will take off that tree branch, they will dive into the river, and they will swim underwater to escape that predator. They're also a very good swimmer. They're gonna use their body and that tail to sort of do like a snake undulating motion to get away from that predator. Now, she's got several things on her body that helps her survive. We'll talk about this thing here first. This is called a dewlap, and it's actually pretty flat. A lot of people will look at this and think that this helps her breathe, but it doesn't. This is how she talks. So when she sees another lizard too close to her home, she'll put that out, and then she'll start bobbing her head up and down, and that's her way of saying, back off, this is my space. Now, she sees a good-looking boy iguana, she's gonna stick that out and do the same thing. So I'm glad iguanas know that language, because it would be hard for us to tell the difference. So you can also see these big scales on the side of her head, and one thought of that is that these could be a protection from predators, making predators think that these are her ears, and her actual ears are right above it, but not as easily seen. So that if a predator came along and tried to attack her ears, they would get this really thick, tough scale and give her a little bit of a chance to escape. Now, another thing that she has, which is so cool, is most people will see her and they see that she's got two eyes, and those eyes can see pretty well with, but lizards have a really unique feature on the top of their head. They have something that is almost a third eye. Now, she can't really see from it. We can't like, hi, from above, but it is thought that they can pick up light and dark areas or shadows, because so many lizards will be eaten by birds of prey, so that they might see, as a bird flies over their head, they might see that shadow and give them an extra chance to get away or to escape. Now, her last really cool adaptation is this beautiful long tail. You can see this long tail, and she's got her stripes all the way down. Now, she can lose her tail, and depending on where her tail comes off, the muscles in it, she has muscle all the way down, and then her backbone will come all the way down her body and through her tail. If she separates, if a predator grabs hold of her tail and she's trying to run away, there's perforations, almost like a piece of paper in her tail that her tail will separate from. And that gives her a chance to escape. Now the piece that comes off will actually continue to wiggle and move. It's called autonomy. It moves around, so the predator is like, I gotta hold on to this so it doesn't get away. Gives her a better chance to survive. Now her tail will grow back, but depending on where it came off, if it came off in one of these dark bands, the rest of the tail will grow back dark, and the bone that was originally in there will be replaced with cartilage. If it comes off in a light band, the rest of the tail will be that color. I have seen iguanas that have lost their tail sort of on a catty corner, and you'll see the top of it is one color and the bottom of it is another color as it grows back. But Ty, as you can see, has not really lost her tail, so she's got her original tail with her still.
Landon wants to know how old she is.
So Ty she's getting up there in age as well. I believe she was born, let me confirm, she was born in 2003. So that makes her getting close to, well, I can't do math today, around 16 years
16,
old?
17, yeah.
16, 17 years old. And these guys can live to be about 18 to 20 years old. So she is getting pretty close there.
So where do all the lizards live here at the zoo?
So all of these lizards that you saw are part of our animal ambassador group. So these are animals that get to go out when school is in session or when we're allowed to gather. They get to go out and meet people so that people can learn more about them and their species. So they live in a separate area at the zoo because they might not always be at the zoo. They might be at a school or at a church when people come in.
So a lot of people commenting about how calm she is and how she really seems to be enjoying the physical attention.
So I will tell you that she is a very unique iguana. She is very calm, she is very laid back. Iguanas are not this calm, and she does seem to enjoy. She kind of leans into scratches that she gets, but she is extremely unique. I've met a lot of iguanas in my days, and she is by far one of the most laid back iguanas.
So one last question. What does she eat?
So these guys are also primarily herbivores. So they're gonna eat fruits and vegetables. She gets things like broccoli, zucchini, kale, romaine lettuce, seasonal fruit. She might have, when they're young, they will need a little bit of extra protein, so they may eat bugs or grubs or things like that. But primarily, they're gonna eat plants. Now, we will, in season, we will get some of those edible flowers from the grocery store. She loves that. And they do tend to really like hibiscus flowers.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed putting that hump day aside and focusing on the lizards and going on our little trip around the world. If you do have questions, I know that we're going to keep watching that message board that you guys are sending in. And we can't wait to see you back here at the zoo when we're able to open